بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So, who can remember the homework? We mentioned here 165, but the true believers love Allah even more. What was the relationship between love and worship? Gratitude, love, and worship. Thank you. Gratitude, love, and worship.
Forgets about it.
So, dunya, Allah gives you dunya, okay? Gratitude is expressing love. Love is the ultimate worship and obedience to God. Good? Good. So, is love part of worship or is it worship? Yeah, it's tricky, right? So, first point is, oh, let's deal with the first thing. Let's look at this in a second, okay? Let's look at this in a second. Let me make this font a bit bigger. How do I make this bigger? So, worship, okay, equals love, right? Plus fear, plus need, plus um you can add other things here, uh, or uh, admiration. We can add other things here, and all of this. Forgive me, I'm like I did math at school, so all of this to the power of a gazillion, right? So this is basically worship, right? So you can be in awe of something, like I'm impressed by something, but when you get to the level of you're impressed by that thing as much as you are impressed by Allah, there's a problem. And it gets to such an extent that it becomes kufr, right? Like you see other things as causes, right? Other things cause your happiness, right? That's what we all do, right? Why do if you just look at the physical thing, somebody looks at something that they want or that they like, and their pupils dilate, right? And it's because they see that that thing causes happiness to them, right? Whereas, and so, that's so it's a weakness in Iman, right? But it gets extreme when people, for example, see that medicine cures me, but not Allah, or you have to make religion kind of moderate because Allah is not going to solve all your problems. Like it gets to weak Iman and gets to the edge of kufr, of the actual disbelief. So if we look at worship, you have to love Allah, you have to fear Allah, you have to need Allah, you have to be in awe of Allah, you have to be in admiration of Allah, right? These are all things that we have to have. And so if we subtract, right? Let's do the math here, okay? If we do this, so worship minus love. That's not a minus sign, is it? Not really a minus sign. And minus love equals, take the love out of here, right? Equals, so you fear Allah, you need Allah, you're in awe of Allah, you're in admiration of Allah. You don't love Allah, right? You're going to have a problem because your worship isn't right, right? And now let's be very practical. Okay, be very practical. Now let's look to your head, right? This is your head. The thoughts that come into your head. These thoughts that come into your head, right, are all based on your what you're attached to, what you love, and what you fear. Okay? So you love food, you love power, you love whatever it is that you love. These things come into your mind, right? Rabbits. Okay, I love my rabbits. You think about things, your worries, the bills, are they going to be paid? The debts, the whatever it is, these worries, the anxiety, your health, your wealth, whatever it is. So now I'm trying to pray and I'm thinking about everything other than Allah, right? But if I love Allah truly and fully, then these things dwindle significantly, right? And so your love and fear, my love and our fear, dictates the thoughts that come to your mind. And you can do you can put your barometer of that is your prayer. So if you stand there talking to Allah and you can focus for about 5% of that time, that means you have a 5% enough love and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you need, and 99.5% of something else. It's all over something totally different, right? It's like it's totally off, right? Whereas if you love Allah, you can only think of Allah, right? And if you fear Allah, you can only think of Allah. So it's very practical. It's a very practical thing. So going back to we so that's what worship is. Worship. So we said love is not worship, but worship is an essential ingredient. It is an integral part of worship. Without worship, without love, you don't have worship. And then how do we get to love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where's that? What do we mention it down here somewhere? Yeah, right. Attachment to Allah, we can even say love of Allah, right? So you have dunya. Let's put in. So let's do an equation for. Let's do it a practical example. A donut, right? A donut plus thanking Allah for the donut before and after eating, for, during, and after eating leads to love of Allah. You've increased your love. You don't have 100% love of Allah, but you have increased love of Allah, plus indifference to the donut. Okay, that means you don't have to think about the donut. That means you're happy to give up the donut. That means, for example, there's two donuts, and you're very happy when, like, when you see it could be given to somebody else, and you're not going to eat it. It's going to be easy for you because you're indifferent to it. You have zuhud, right? You don't care about the dunya, right? So, what's the sign that you don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you're not doing this process, is that you still want another donut, right? It's still in your mind. It's still there. Like it still keeps coming. It's a thing, like just dawns on you, right? You just want another one, another one, and another one, another one. This is now the addict, right? The person who's addicted to the dunya. And then the thoughts are all around the same thing or things as opposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So now we replace the donut with everything else. Your kids, you're this, you're that, whatever it is, your car, your nice, whatever car you have, you do this. The person, for example, who thanks Allah for their car it ends up loving the car, Allah and not loving the car, and is indifferent. They get a scratch, it doesn't change their heart. Doesn't not a deal. They don't worry. As opposed to the person who is not doing this process or not doing this process properly, they're not going to be able to do that. So the dunya then, as bad as it may seem, is actually our door to worship. The the door, so the dunya, uh, as bad as it may seem, is our door to worship, right? Just like shaitan, as bad as he may seem, he's actually there. He's actually our, without him, it's going to be quite hard to do many good things. Were it not for poverty, there would be no generosity. Were it not be danger, there would be no courage. Were it not for, right? As they say, لولا ما يدين النفوس لما تحقق سير السائرين. Like, were it not for this big war that we have to fight of changing the way we look at the donut, the way we look at money, the way we look at power, the way we look at this, the way we look at that, whatever it is, then this whole process wouldn't happen, right? So there's no Lord of the Rings without the ring. There's no Robin Hood without what's it called? What are the bad guy is? Can't remember his name. Right? There's no Spider-Man, or no, there's no Batman without the Joker. Right? But the process has to happen. Right? Just like the process of the film, you have to go through the film. Right? And the process might not happen, and it's very tangible. Right? It's very tangible. How we are, the thoughts that come to your head, these are indicative. The playlist that you have on your head of thoughts, which is a playlist, right, is based on your attachments. So if you're only attached to Allah, you only notice Allah. You only get upset for the sake of Allah. The things that annoy you are things that annoy Allah, and you don't get annoyed by anything else. Does that make sense? So when you get annoyed by something else, you know that this process isn't really happening properly. Right? When you want something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know that this process isn't really happening properly, or it's not happening at all. And obviously, a necessary condition of thanking Allah is you can do it in the halal. You're not going to do something in the haram, are you? Right? I thank Allah for my beautiful girlfriend. How? I thank Allah for pork. It's such a beautiful thing to eat. How? That's not possible. So you can't thank Allah through the haram, right? So this is a very different paradigm to saying, yes, fear Allah, it's true. Fearing Allah and doing things that are not, and avoiding things because you're scared of Allah is a means to increase fear, which is an integral of worship as well. That's on another side. But on the side of love, which is a very powerful thing, right? It's very, very different. Like, why did this person not eat pork? Because I love Allah and because I appreciate Allah. Why did they get out of that haram relationship? Because they feel because they love Allah, right? So love is a very important thing. It's not a small thing at all. Right? It's a major thing in the Islamic tradition, love, right? Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri, great Andalusian scholar of hadith and of literature and so many different things. He has a whole book writing about what it's like to fall in love and people who are in love, what do they do, etc. And what has stories of love. It's a real thing. It's not a small thing because it's an integral of worship. It's an integral of worship. Does this all make sense? Okay. Okay. Still, there are some who take others as Allah's equal. They love them as they should Allah, but the true believers love Allah even more. If only the wrongdoers could see the horrible punishment awaiting them, when they would surely realize that all power belongs to Allah, and Allah is indeed severe in punishment. So, key concept about Allah's punishment: whenever you feel safe from Allah's punishment, you're damned. And whenever you do not feel safe of Allah's punishment, you're saved, right? Whenever you feel safe, like I'm okay, I'm doing what's right now. It's okay. I've stopped doing haram. I'm doing what I can. So I'm going to be saved now. That means you're damned. But when you're scared, you live in trepidation, and you're worried about will I make it? Will I make it? Ya Allah, please help me. Will I make it? That means you're being saved. So trepidation, healthy trepidation. You're not despairing, but you're in trepidation. You're generally concerned, like, am I going to make it or not? This means you're in the right way. Consider the day when those who misled others will disown their sworn enemy. He only incites the followers, when they face the torment and the bonds that united them will cut off. The misled followers will cry, if only we could have a second chance. We would disown them as they disowned us. So this is this fundamental concept in the Quran and the Hadith about who are you around, who do you listen to, who do you follow on Instagram, on who do you watch, what TV do you watch, who you surrounding yourself with. So very fundamental thing, surround yourself with good people. In fact, don't surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who are better than you. Always surround yourself with people who have more fear of Allah than you, who have more love of Allah than you, who focus more in prayer. Surround yourself with these people, and you'll find the deen so much easier. Surround yourself with the wrong people. Surprise, surprise, it's just an impossibility, right? It's just an impossibility. Like I can't get around. So you have to surround yourself with these people. Not just scholars, because not all scholars are righteous, and not all righteous people are scholars. So scholarship is an essential part. Like we need people who know the details, right? But what I'm talking about is people who understand 120% that this life is just an exam room. I'm just here. I'm going to work now. Flat tire. This is a test. I'm in the office. This is a test. This is a test. This is a test. I'm just here to do good deeds. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to pay off debts. I'm not here to win this thing or win that thing. I'm just here to do good deeds. That's all. That's the people we need to be around. So not all scholars are like that. How do we make sure that we are following the right people? Ask Allah, say, oh Allah, surround me with people who love you and love your sunnah, the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's not too difficult, right? And I'm not talking about like judging other people, but people around you doing the haram, right? Like if I just give you an example, if I certain people I know, if I did riba in front of them, like I wouldn't get away with it. They would stop me, and they would also be in shock. They were like, "Oh my God, you just made riba. That's insane. We've never heard you make riba. What's that?" Like, if you speak bad about somebody, if they saw me not praying in the masjid, like, what happened? They'd be shocked. If they saw me, I don't know what I did, something I did, you know, didn't stop praying sunnahs, they'd be shocked, right? Shave off my beard, they'd be shocked, right? And they'd be like, that's not how you are, Fareed, right? And they would call me out, right? And they would help me. Um, they're careful with their words. You're around people who watch TV all the time. Like these are people of the dunya. You are people who do dhikr all the time. You are people of the akhirah. You are people who talk about cars. You are people who talk about the sunnah. You are people who, girls, for example, you're hanging out with the females, like they're obsessed about their health and wealth, as opposed to they're obsessed about their health and wealth for the sake of the akhirah. Like, okay, I have a project here, I have something, my health is a concern, I need to look after myself, right? As opposed to they're like really into exercise for the sake of exercise, which is dunya, right? As opposed to exercise for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So it's quite easy to find people who are worldlings, because most people are worldlings. And so if you have one or two friends on the face of the earth, that's fine. It's not a problem. You don't need to be around a lot of people. But you need to be around people, surround yourself with people, and make that a priority. It's a life priority. Like it doesn't matter where I live on planet Earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for me. But I want to be around good people, people who strengthen my iman, right? When I see them, I think I got to work hard. I got to do this. I can do this, right? That's what you have to do, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look out for you. The misled followers will cry, if only we could have a second chance, we would disown them as they disowned us. And so I like that, right? And so, right? And in that way, Allah will make them remorseful of their misdeeds, and they will never be able to leave the fire. And so many people are like this, right? So many people, it's like, You just got caught up with the wrong people. Why are you in prison? Caught up with the wrong people. Why did this happen? Caught up with the wrong people. Right? Don't do it. Be very, very careful of the people you're around because a sahib, sahib, your friend will pull you within seconds. Right? Within seconds, you see it on a screen, it starts absorbing you. The person next to you absorbs you. Right? So you've got to be very, very careful. Who am I around? Surround myself with people who are going to suck me into to the akhirah and to the next life, into iman and these things continually. Every single thing is like that. Every single interaction is pulling you one way or the other. I mean, so you have to be very, very careful of who we are, right? O humanity, eat from what is lawful and good on earth and do not follow the Satan's footsteps, right? The shaitan, this is how it works. Shaitan does not, when you're walking down the street, the shaitan doesn't say go back the other way. The shaitan walks with you in the same direction and encourages you to walk in the same direction. And then he turns off 1 degree to the right, and then another degree to the right, and bit by bit, and then you find yourself later 180 degrees later, different. So the shaitan does not work. Yeah, he doesn't come up to you and say, "Hi, I'm the devil. I want you to worship me." He never does that ever. He speaks to you in your own voice, and he uses your own attachments. So when he comes to a heart that doesn't love anything other than Allah, he really has nothing to grab hold of. But when he comes to somebody who loves power, who loves money, who loves the opposite sex, who loves showing off about their whatever something that they have, he uses that, and he comes in immediately, boom, and he's going to grab that. He's going to use that, right? And he's there. He's there. His number one occupation is righteous people, right? Kuffar are then that's like that's already business is paying for itself. So his occupation is ruining righteous people. So to think the shaitan isn't on my case, that's not the case at all, right? Of course, he's here with us right now because he wants to ruin this good, right? So that's why we say "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," right? And again, you play music, he's going to be there, right? Of course, he's going to be there. That's what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Surah Shu'ara, right? In Surah Shu'ara, the poets, it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, shall I tell you who the devils descend upon, right? They descend upon these poets who say all this stuff. So you're surrounded by kufr ideas and haram, and the shaitan is loving it. And the shayateen, he's sending his old troops in there, right? So that's why you want to be around Sayyidina Umar's, right? Sayyidina Umar goes one way, the shaitan goes the other way. So you're around people that's what it's like when you're around this person. Shaitan, it really doesn't want to be there. When you're around people, you're making dhikr, you burn up the shaitan, he hates it. You're doing Quran, etc. So people who do Quran, people who do dhikr, people who do these things. So do not follow the footsteps of shaitan, right? He is truly your sworn enemy, right? That's a sworn enemy. He only incites you to commit evil and indecency and to claim against Allah that which you do not know. Right? So this is a reference to the pagans who made up Sharia. They said, "Oh, Allah makes this halal, Allah makes that haram." But it also applies to us. If you A, do not know 100%, and B, are not are um uh, like unless you know 100% your answer about halal, haram, and what is sunnah, what is not sunnah, and unless you are obliged to speak, do not speak. Right? Don't speak. So this is what people do today. They're like, yeah, this is sunnah. I read a hadith about it. Here, this is haram. I just read this verse of the Quran. Don't talk. Unless there's nobody else that could possibly answer that question. You can't say, for example, go and ask that sheikh, go and ask the imam, here's a WhatsApp group, here's a this, here's a that. Then then talk. If that's not like, but if there is somebody possibly anybody to answer that question, go and ask somebody else. Right? Many times, for example, again when I was in Jordan, there were other scholars around. People come and ask you a question, say, go and ask that person. He's there. Go and ask that person. Go and ask this person. Right? Um, so be the last person to speak, and only speak when it would be haram if you didn't speak. Because 95% of the time people say, "Oh, this son, I read this." Like that's actually wrong. Don't do that. Or this is haram. It's like that's not correct. Don't do that. Like don't talk. Cardinal point. Don't talk unless you have to talk. And they claim against Allah that which they do not, they make signs. When it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they say, no, why would you follow what Allah has revealed? We only follow what our forefathers are practicing, right? Our tradition is number one because people identify with their tradition. So what they do in England is right because I'm English. What we do in America is right because I'm American. And if you challenge my culture, you're challenging me, right? And so this is it, even if it's wrong, it's right. We only follow what our forefathers are practicing. Would they still would they still do so even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? Right. So again, many people do this as our culture. This is my culture. It's what we do. Ibn Battuta, many of you have heard of him. He was a great traveler. He traveled around, and as a scholar, as he travels around, we hear, he's a scholar of Islamic law and things like that. We hear some of his, Islamic critique of people, like what are they doing wrong or what they're doing right, etc. So he was in some place, I think he was in Mali or maybe further down south. I don't know where he was, someplace in Africa. And there was a judge, a qadi, and he used to hang out with this lady. So, um, he said, like, Sheikh, like, why are you hanging out with some ladies? Is this your wife? He's like, no. He's like, this is our culture. Our culture's like, it's not like that. We're not, she's just a friend. Like in our culture, men and women hang out. So he said, yeah, but that's haram. You can't do that. And he said, yeah, but that's our culture. So he said, I never spoke to him ever again. Right. So so culture is relevant in Islam when there is no dictate from the deen. Right. Like how you should dress exactly. If there's no dictate on how you should dress exactly regarding this or regarding that, then it's. But there's other things that don't change with culture, right? So that doesn't, you know, um, so it's like it doesn't that doesn't if there's a dictate from the Sharia, if Allah is telling you do this or don't do this, or this is good or this is not so good, then culture has no place, right? Would they still do so even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? The example of the disbelievers not responding to the messenger's warning is like a flock not comprehending the calls and the cries of the shepherd. They are willfully deaf, dumb, and blind, so they have no understanding. Oh, believers! So this is part and parcel of this. So the Jew, so the pagans inventing halal and haram food and making up their own rules and saying this is from Allah. Right? It's not the case. Oh, believers, eat from the good things that Allah has provided for you, and give thanks to Allah if you truly worship Him. Right? So one of these weird things that they used to do as well is weird rituals that the Arab pagans invented regarding halal and haram food. But also, as a great business plan, they made up this kind of rule that you can't bring unsacred food to the sacred precinct. You can't bring food and clothes outside of Mecca, inside Mecca, right? And if you do, you're going to have to take those clothes off. So that's why, for example, you would have at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people, pagans doing tawaf naked because they wouldn't want to buy clothes. And they said, oh, but you're wearing, you're in taboo, you're in a sacred place. And so you can't wear unsacred clothes. You have to take your clothes off, right? So that's something that happened. And later on, we're going to see the verse وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى, telling the believers like you can bring food from outside. It's okay because it was forbidden. They had made it forbidden. You can't bring food outside of Mecca, inside Mecca, because it's not sacred. And obviously, that makes a ridiculous amount of money, right? If you ban imports and you say these people all want to come to the country and you ban imports, now they have to buy from you, right? So obviously, it makes a lot of money. So, O believers, eat from the good things that we have provided for you and give thanks to Allah if truly you worship Him alone. He has only forbidden to you, i.e., so here this is talking to the pagans who had created haram things. This is haram, and this is haram, and this is haram, and this is haram. No, it's not haram for you. He's only forbidden for you carrion, right? i.e., meta. Meta is not slaughtered meat. So what does that mean? That means, a chicken, a cow, a sheep that is not slaughtered properly, right? What is slaughtered properly means you cut trachea and the what's it called, esophagus, and you cut uh, um, the veins on either side, right? And you say Bismillah. That's what it means to slaughter properly, right? So anything that's not that done in that way or is not normally done in that way is not halal, right? And so this is very important to people understand is that, we live in a world where um, what what percent of the world is Muslim? I don't know, but the default of meat is not halal, right? Because it's carrion, right? Any dead animal is not halal. So when people just say you can just eat any meat, you can't do that, right? You can't just eat any meat. We'll see later on you can eat, for example, kosher meat, things like that. But you can't just eat any meat because it's considered carrion if it's not slaughtered properly. Meaning, what does that mean? It means like the default is like if it's not the default, if it's not the norm in that the place of origin that this meat is cut properly, they cut the throat properly and they say Bismillah, then it's not halal. You can't eat this, right? And you cannot eat blood, and you cannot eat pig, and that which is slaughtered in the name of any other god. But if someone is compelled by necessity, that's something different. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. Right? So this is a principle in the Sharia. It comes here in this verse of the Quran. It's a principle in the sacred law is when you in duress, right? In a case of duress, compelled by necessity, excuse me, then the haram becomes halal. There's a principle. الضرورات تبيح المحظورات. That which is something that is in a pressing situation, a life or death situation, right? Then the haram becomes halal. Wine becomes halal. Pork becomes halal, etc. Right? Um, However, the ayah says, neither driven by desire nor exceeding the immediate need. So now you go over the limit, right? غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. You don't go on. And that's another principle of fiqh, right? In halal and haram is الضرورات تقدر بقدرها, right? Duress shall only be recognized in its actual amount. So you're on desert island and there's you and a pig and um, you're going to die if you don't eat this pig. So you kill the pig and you eat it. Yeah, but how much of the pig do you eat? Only the amount that you need. The bare minimum you need to survive. Right? The bare minimum you need to survive. So just because so many people, many Muslims as a lifestyle, they say the deen is too difficult. Everything haram is now halal for me. Right? So difficulty means duress for them. There's no difference between difficulty, right? This is inconvenient, or this is difficult, or this is duress. This is a life or death scenario, right? And then there's no difference between it became halal for one reason, so now it's totally halal, right? So that's not true, right? So for example, you're a doctor and you have to touch a patient. Okay, well, you have to touch a patient. Can you touch a patient with gloves on? Yeah. Okay, great. So you're touching a patient now. So the fact that I can touch a patient with gloves on doesn't allow me to touch it without gloves on, right? And so there's a difference. Um, the fact that, for example, you can touch the patient once doesn't mean you can touch the patient twice, right? The fact that the patient could expose some aura doesn't mean they expose your whole aura, right? So, it's if someone is compelled by necessity, then neither exceeding the immediate need. You don't need to do that, right? Insurance, you're forced by the law to have car insurance. Okay, have car insurance. Do you have comprehensive insurance? No. Okay, why do you have comprehensive insurance then? Uh, uh, there's no way to do this financial transaction at all without using a bank. Okay, don't use a bank then. It doesn't mean everything to do with the bank is now halal for me, right? So it's a mentality is that yes, I understand I have a Lord who is merciful and caring, considerate, and when pushed, things change. I understand that, but that doesn't mean everything changes, right? Oh, it's we're the 21st century now, everything haram becomes halal, right? Not like that, and not every single thing is considered duress, right? There is such thing as المشقة, like there's such thing as عموم balwa, there's such thing as it's not actually duress, but it's a widespread recurrent difficulty. It applies to many people. That's true. There are scenarios like that, and it does change things sometimes. But the default is, unless you're forced, that's it. It's haram. Like I can't, it's awkward to pray in public. Yeah, it is awkward to pray in public, but you're not going to die if you pray in public. It's awkward to wear hijab. Yeah, I know. It's awkward. It's very inconvenient to buy halal food. It's more expensive. It's difficult to find. Yeah, I know. You're not going to die. It's not the end of the world. So many people they treat things um, as if it's really a big problem. It's not really a big problem, right? Indeed, those who hide Allah's revelations, trading them for a fleeting gain, consume nothing but fire into their bellies. Right? Allah will neither speak to them on Judgment Day, nor will He purify them, and they will suffer a painful punishment. They are the ones who trade guidance for misguidance and forgiveness for punishment. How persistent they are in pursuit, right? Or how much guts do they have? You could say, how much guts they have when it comes to the fire. That is because Allah has revealed the book in truth, and surely those who differ regarding it are totally engrossed in opposition. Righteousness is not in turning your faces towards the east and the west. Very important verse. Is the religion about rituals? No. Is the religion about what you eat and how you dress? No. It is not about shakliyat. It's not about doing things outwardly, but rather it is doing things uh, um, um, uh, um, righteousness is not in turning your faces east and in the west, but rather righteousness is something else. Okay, what is that thing then? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, rather righteousness is embodied and found in those people, such that righteousness is, are those people who believe in Allah, are those, right? So can you see the shift? The pagans are all about idols and weird rituals. Islam is about people and hearts, right? So rituals do apply, that's true, but that's not what it's about. So when you're worshiping Zeus, and Zeus cannot be worshipped on this day, he has to be worshipped on the next day, and Zeus orders that every child from this age has to be slaughtered, whatever. It's a bunch of random rules that you have to get around. There's a weird, false idol god that you have to kind of appease, otherwise he's going to get angry and kill you. As opposed to we're dealing with Allah, and He's a personal God who is beyond space and time and doesn't need rituals, and you can overlook rituals, it's not a problem. He doesn't need any of these things to forgive you, right? And those people who embody those things, that's what goodness is. Righteousness is actually those who believe in Allah, the last day, the angels, the books, and the prophets, who give charity out of their cherished wealth, all right, to relatives, orphans, the poor, and the needy travelers, to beggars, and for the freeing of captives, who establish prayer. Yuqimu salah, meaning what? They pray properly, with focus, proper, best tajweed as possible in a group prayer, right? And they're regularly done on time. They pay alms tax. They keep the pledges they make. They make promises and they keep them. Those who are patient in times of suffering, adversity, and in the heat of battle. It is those who are true in faith, and it is they who are who have war who أولئك هم المتقون, the people who are warding off, saving themselves from Allah's punishment. O believers, the law of revelation retaliation is set in cases of murder: a free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a female for a female. So what is this? This is qisas. Okay, so again, shifting from tribal feuds to law and order. Okay, so what happens then when somebody kills a family member? Somebody kills a family member, there are these two tribes. So then they seek retaliation. And then the other tribe takes retaliation. It goes back and forward and back and forward, back and forward forever and ever and ever, right? So, recently I was in Scotland, or I guess a year ago, whenever that was, I was in Scotland and went through one of the glens, a beautiful area in Scotland, and there was a bloodbath there between two of the clans, right? All these these uh, uh, MacDonald and McLaren, and these are all tribes, these are all clans of the Scottish Highlands, and so they have clans and they have tribes, and there's feuds between them, and it gets bloody. And so the Deen comes along and says, we and I, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understand you humans and your need for vengeance, but it has to be done in with law and order. So when somebody kills somebody, bring it to the court. Don't just settle it between yourselves. Right? And then now it's been proven that so and so killed so and so. Now you have one of three options. Would you like this man killed? Yes. Okay. Would you like this man to pay blood money instead? Right? It was called there's a word in like Anglo-Saxon law for it. It's called like blood weld or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. There's some kind of word. It used to be a part of Anglo-Saxon law in England as well. Blood money, paying blood money. So you killed so and so, you're going to pay the blood money. Or what does Islam teach though? Does Islam teach vengeance? Islam does not teach vengeance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What does that mean? It means I forgive everybody to my right and I forgive everybody to my left. Forgiveness. That's what Islam teaches. So Allah is dealing with us on different levels. You want vengeance? I will organize vengeance for you in a lawful, organized way. You want money because it's a financial cost. You lost somebody. Here you go. Do you want to do the right thing? Bismillah. Right? Go and forgive. So it says, "Oh believers, that's the best thing to do." As we're going to see what happens then. It says, "Oh believers, the law of retaliation, qisas, is set for you in cases of murder. A free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a female for a female. But if the offender is pardoned by the victim's guardian, which is the sunnah, somebody kills your dad, what's supposed to happen? Number one, you don't tell anybody, apart from your brothers and sisters and people who have a right. And you go and tell your family and say, listen, this guy killed. I was there and he killed our dad. Let us all forgive him. And they will say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. Why is that the right thing to do? Because it's Islamic, number one. And number two, you guarantee that your father is forgiven. But if the offender is pardoned by the victim's guardian or guardians, then blood money should be decided fairly. And payment should be made courteously. So they agree not to have him executed, but rather take money. This is a concession and a mercy from your Lord, but whoever transgresses after that will suffer a painful punishment. Right? It doesn't mention the rest of it. Later on, other verses of the Quran, he will mention that whoever is forgiven. So if it mentions later on, it's not there. It's going to come later on that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that if you forgive, then that will be a kafara, that will be an expiation for the person who was killed. Right? So notice how different it is to Western law, right? So there are certain laws that are certain rights that are called haqqullah. It's the right of Allah. So that's to do with the court and that individual. And certain things are to do with your rights. So if somebody has offended you, you have a right. Somebody who does something to you, you have a right to get that back. Now, if they give that back, you have no right to expose them, right? So let's say in Western law and American law or UK law, like the idea that somebody is a murderer and is allowed to be forgiven, that's kind of very odd, right? Like the law, like this, the right of the law. The law has to, this person has to go to jail. It's like it's not about the right of the family. In Islamic law, it's the right of the family. Like you killed our son, we forgive you. And we don't even talk about it. End of story. And you can come for dinner tonight as well. And that sounds very strange to us because number one, a lot of us, vengeance is part of morality for us, right? Vengeance is part of morality for us, right? We feel like it's right, like somebody has to be punished. That's actually not the case, right? When somebody does something wrong, nobody has to be punished. Just like when you or I do something haram, who has to be punished? Do we have to be punished? Or can Allah just forgive us? Similarly, if people do wrong to you, can they just be forgiven? Yeah, they can just be forgiven. Yeah, but that is like no. So I mean, there's other things. Someone's a serial killer. The person's gonna could keep doing it. There's something else. I'm not talking about that. But the point is, somebody got angry. They had an argument with your son, and they killed him. And he's super sad. And he's like, "Oh my God, I killed him!" And da da da. It's like it's okay. I'm not gonna tell the police. I'm not gonna tell anybody else. And here we are. The family forgives you. Done. Now, again, that's illegal, right? In America, like you didn't tell the police your son died, you didn't tell anybody. But in the eyes of the court, the Sharia court, that's your haq. That's your haq, um, and you have a right to do that, right? Now let's flip it on the other side, right? Let's flip it on the other side. In the Western court, in the Western court, your husband cheats on you. Is that? I mean, if you don't take it to court, like is it illegal? I mean, is it illegal to cheat on your husband or wife? I don't know. Is it illegal? I'm not sure. I don't think it's illegal. So are you raising a divorce case and that's the grounds for the divorce? Like how does it work? Like so it's actually got so in the Western paradigm, that's to do with you and him, right? That's to do with you and him. So, that's you decide should it be taken to court or not, should it otherwise, right? In the in the Islamic paradigm, it's totally different. In the Islamic paradigm, number one, it should be covered. You find that your husband or wife has done something haram like that, may Allah protect us all, and you should cover their faults, right? You're not obliged to take that to court. In fact, they shouldn't take it to court. But if it comes to court, for example, he goes to court and confesses, or it's seen, four witnesses saw it, right? Um, and so this happened, then it is nothing to do with you. You don't have a right to know about it, nor do you have a right to forgive it. It is the haqq of Allah that this person be stoned to death. Or somebody steals. It's okay, I've forgiven them, right? This happened. A Sahabi, he said, Ya Rasulullah, this man stole, right? And it was proven that he stole. But and then the Prophet said, okay, we're going to cut his hand off. And then the Sahabi said, no, no, it's okay, I forgive him. It's like, well, you should have said it beforehand. Meaning, your right to forgive in theft is you don't have a right to do that. It's actually the right of society. It's called haqqullah, the right of Allah. It's the right of Allah, not the individual, to forgive the theft. So the society has a right for this man's hand to be cut off, not you. So whether you want him to be hand to be cut off or not is irrelevant. Whether you want your husband or wife to be stoned to death, it's irrelevant. You neither have a right to know about it. So 5 years later, this lady's like, I have no idea where my husband was for the last 5 years. And then she find out, oh, by the way, he was executed. Like, wow, okay. And they're like, why? And they're like, you don't have a right to know. Because so the way we see it in the Western paradigm is like, what do you mean being cheated on? Because of course I have a right to know. Whereas um whereas in the Sharia, in the eyes of the Sharia, it's nothing to do with you. That's a totally different thing. Whereas murder is not a societal thing. It is a personal thing. You you should forgive. You should cover their faults, not expose them, and you should tell them to repent and forgive them. That is the Islamic thing to do, right? Obviously, assuming that all the awliya ad-dam, all the guardians, the people who are related to that person who could ask for blood money, also agree, right? So his immediate family, they all agree, and that's it. That's done. Does forgiveness automatically come with blood money? No. Yeah. But these are very easy things to talk about, very hard things to do, right? So somebody is cheated on, for example. What is the Islamic thing to do if you're cheated on? To tell your husband, your wife, say this is haram. Allah hates this, and don't ever do it again. And that's it. But I'd like to hear of somebody who's doing that. It's quite hard. It's quite hard for your father, your son, your daughter to be killed and you just not take vengeance. It's that most of us are not angels, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, you're not an angel. Let's do it in the proper way. So your wife cheated on you? Okay, sure. And do you have witnesses? No. Okay, take it to court and you're going to do, we'll see later on. Um, there's a process for that. There's a process for it. You can't forgive? Okay, there's a process for it. But everything has a process. Law and order is very, very important in the Sharia. Very, very important. Law and order is more important than ethics. It's better that we have law and order than we have good things happening, because the evil that comes out of chaos is a huge problem. So again, many Muslims, the way that they function is they function in a chaotic way. They don't function. They're not. Muslims, unfortunately, are often not law abiding. Like law, let's say in the Muslim lands, heartlands, law is not considered morally important, and rules are not more important. And it's about feelings, and it's about how society looks at things and how culture looks at things. It's not about the rules of the Sharia, uh, or the rules of the country. It's not relevant. So I remember, I do my driving license in Jordan, and I was doing my the what's called the knowledge test, and we call it theory test in England. And there was a policeman who was trying to help me cheat. He was like, "Oh man, why did you put it in English? I could have helped you. I know the answers. I could just help you." And he was genuinely like trying to show, like I wasn't bribing him, nor was he trying to do something bad. He's just somebody who's like, "I just want to help you out. Like this is a good thing, right? Helping people is good." He doesn't see it as grossly haram, and he doesn't see it as illegal. Like that's not even there in the minds. That's just not even there, right? And so there's so many Muslims like this. They don't their law and order is because they don't their life is based on culture, not based on deen. And so that's important. Law and order is very, very important. It's much better to have a corrupt, horrible ruler that keeps law and order, and the law and order happens in at least 90% of the time, as opposed to chaos. Right? Chaos is not good at all. Okay, but if the offender is pardoned, etc., etc., this is a concession and a mercy from your Lord, but whoever transgresses after that will suffer a painful punishment. There is a security of life for you in the law of retaliation, right? There is life in death. That's what the verse literally says. In taking life, for taking life, there is death. Meaning, if there is such thing as a death penalty, people think more than twice before they kill. Right? And then in the Sharia, there's no difference in cold-blinded, cold blood. It's not the same. It's like you killed somebody in anger. I'm sorry. You're responsible for you. You killed someone while you're drunk. I'm sorry. I'm really sad. I'm sad that happened. You didn't mean to kill them. You were drunk and you killed them. It counts. Right? You are considered a murderer. Right? You got drunk. You got into a car and you killed somebody. It's considered intentional murder for us. If you intentionally drank, then it's considered intentional murder for us. Right? And it's a key thing to understand as well that in the Sharia, the default is there's no such thing as imprisonment, apart from for very few things. So there's no had punishment there's no fixed punishment like, okay, if you steal, there's this much time in prison. Prison is not a very useful thing unless you want to make money out of it, right? So, somebody who spent time, for example, somebody who I know who was into music and who has also spent time in jail, they said the people who own the prisons also own the music industry, right? And many of us might not know that in many countries, the prisons are actually private companies. And people work in they do basically sweatshops basically in prisons. People being paid a hundredth or at least a 50th of the minimum wage. Right? And so basically cheap labor. So it is useful. Prisons are useful for certain businesses. It's a useful thing to do. And people have certain, for example, social engineering agendas. It's a useful thing to do. Whereas in the deen, the default is you stole, get your hand cut off. Goodbye. Done. You're not in jail. You killed somebody. You either killed or you pay the blood money or you're forgiven. There's no jail. So the idea that, the idea of like all these people in jail, thousands of people in jail, it's not a useful thing to do. There are certain cases where the jail does exist, but by default, it's not jail is not a thing. There is security of life for people in the law of retaliation. O people of reason, so that you may become mindful of Allah, fear Allah. Right? Don't drink, because if you got drunk and gone to a fight and killed somebody, you might be killed. Well, I got killed for drinking, so yep, sorry. You were speeding, you hit somebody, it's considered murder. It's considered cold-blooded murder. It is prescribed that when death, even speeding itself, right? You're speeding and you killed somebody. It's considered cold-blooded murder. They can have you executed for that because you went over the speed limit, so intentionally. So you were driving dangerously intentionally. So now everything else is your fault. It's now considered murder. Somebody who's coming around the corner, you hit them. Sorry, you're considered a murderer now, and you could be executed for that. So again, what a difference! You're like, wow, I could be killed for speeding. Basically, I'm not going to speed then, am I? I'm not going to drink then, am I? Because I could actually be killed for this. As opposed to that's not going to happen. What's going to happen? You're going to get a ticket. You're going to have to pay something. You might have to go in jail. You might lose your license. But when people, uh, you know, when people know about these things, when there are actual hard rules, people, people react. Like people to change, it does actually change behavior, social behavior, and makes the world a safer place for people to live. It is prescribed for you upon death, when a breath approaches you, that they will leave something of value. So this is the wills and bequests. So originally the Muslims were encouraged to leave a will. Okay. Thereafter, the verses of inheritance were revealed, which abrogated these things, right? Abrogated these things. So originally there was no such thing as fixed inheritance shares, and so they were just obliged to make a bequest. But now, after that, the verses were revealed. So this is abrogated. So there's an idea that there's a verse of the Quran that tells us something. There's a rule in it, but that rule doesn't apply anymore because it was abrogated, it was cancelled during the time of the Prophet ﷺ himself. Okay, inshallah, we will resume here, inshallah ta'ala. خير إن شاء الله وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك